And you were responsible as U.S. Attorney for your district for prosecuting all manner of crimes, including federal firearms crimes. Is that correct?
I oversaw an office that was responsible for federal prosecutions and law enforcement in the Northern District of Ohio.
Right, including firearms offenses. Were those high priority for you?
They were, Senator.
Yeah. Do you think that they should be a high priority?
I think, yes. I think you're working with local law enforcement and state law enforcement together, but together you're working in partnership, and violent crime and gun crime should be a priority. Terrorism is a priority also. There are other priorities, but yes, sure, it is a priority.
Sure. And you just said that you just committed to Senator Feinstein that you'd be very strong in this role. And I assume you think it's important to be very strong as a prosecutor when it comes to violent crime, including firearms crime, like the kind that we saw yesterday. Is that fair to say?
Yes, Senator, I think it is. It's fair but strong, yes.
Yeah. So let me just ask you then about something in your record that puzzles me, and I was hoping you could walk me through it. When you became the U.S. Attorney, there were about 120 firearms and explosives prosecutions a year. By the time you left, there were half that number. And in fact, there was a pretty continuous decline over 3 years, lower year on year, 113 in 2014, 75 in 2015, 65 in 2016, which you just told me was your last year. What accounts for that? Walk me through that.
Yeah, sure, Senator. So prosecuting gun crime, look, from my earliest days as a prosecutor in Maryland, I was the liaison officer, what we then called Project Disarm, which meant I sat with an ATF agent and a PG County detective in a conference room every Monday morning with a stack of cases this high and went through which one should go state, which one, they would tell me, this is a dangerous person, we should go federal, this is a gang case, put it in a third pile. And I have been committed to that for many years. When I was U.S. Attorney, we already had in the office my predecessor, who I worked for and did gun cases for, Greg White, who's supporting my nomination. He had an aggressive program, and we continued it. We never changed our intake guidelines. We never lowered them. There were times where we never raised them. We actually lowered them sometimes. If I got a phone call from Youngstown saying we're having a problem, we would go out and do what we call the V-grip program. And I did that every summer in one city or another, depending on where the data showed the problems were. And so there were years where our gun crime prosecutions went up. And then there were years where they went down. We didn't change our guidelines. I will tell you, during some of those years, law enforcement, they're the ones who bring you the cases, right? Federal law enforcement and others. And my office, too, had significant staffing issues. I was U.S. Attorney during sequestration. I was U.S. Attorney during shutdown. I actually, to show people you had to do everything, I sat the reception desk at one point as U.S. Attorney. And so I can't tell you what causes ups and downs in those numbers, but I'll tell you one thing that didn't cause it was any change in our approach to what cases should be prosecuted in our office.
But it's a pretty big drop, isn't it? I mean, 121 cases brought the year you became U.S. Attorney. It's pretty constant then for, as you said, a couple of years, I assume, because you're following your predecessor's policy. And then it begins a steady decline down to 65. I mean, that's half as much. And what I notice is the next year, under your successor, it doubles. So help me understand, I mean, what is this? Was this just not something that you were pushing, or you said earlier, was this the police's fault?
No, it wasn't the police's fault, and it was something that I definitely focused significant time and attention on. The same people in the office who are great career assistant U.S. attorneys ran that program. It wasn't that I was just following the program of my predecessor. I believed in it, and we never changed it. So with respect to these kinds of cases, Senator, I never saw a situation where any person who worked for me in my office was declining cases. There was a time I remember in Akron, Ohio, where this great career assistant, probably one of the most aggressive gun prosecutors I ever met, she turned down a case. She said it didn't match our guidelines. This chief of police in Akron called me, and he said, this is wrong. And I said, well, tell me what's going on. And she said, well, we don't have a predicate that matches the office policy, whatever it was at the time. Yes, but the Youngstown police chief, Jim Nice, just told me they like this guy for 2 homicides that they haven't caught him for, and he's terrorizing a complex. We're doing the case. And we did the case. That was my attitude from when I started to when I finished, and it was my predecessor's attitude and my successors who are all supporting me for this job.
So what you're telling me is you don't know why the prosecutions went in half, or why the cases, these aren't.
There were years it went up, I believe, Senator, also.
Well, sure, and I mentioned, it was about level. I mean, and your high water mark was 160, but then it goes down to 65, and as I said, there's a pattern here. It's a 3-year, 113 in 2014, 75 in 2015, 65 in 2016. But it sounds like you don't know. I mean, that's your testimony.
Yeah, my last day as U.S. Attorney was February 5th of 2016, Senator.
Right. So the cases that were prosecuted that year were in the pipeline under you. Did you study it? I mean, did you look at these numbers and say, this is disturbing? I mean, this needs to change. We need to get tough.
Senator, I think we enforce the law, and I will tell you that cases in that kind of program are very quick turnaround cases. We have to charge within sometimes a week or two. It's not like a white-collar case. Cops catch somebody in the street who's dangerous, they arrest them, we've got to charge.
So did crime go down during those years?
Crime did go down, but I don't know what the particular cause is. I know we never changed our policy, Senator, and I know that it was an office priority.
Why don't you take that for the record and get back to me on that? And thank you, Mr. Chairman.